So Ryan Fowler here with say a fake name, real name, whatever you want.
Yeah, Ryan Apollo.
Okay, cool, man. So we just had a session. I want to talk about it, but also talk. You've had a session. I think you've had one session with me and two with Mr. Christensen. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I was just hoping to interview you, Ryan, and kind of show how things work. To guys that are watching this. Um, so we both got nuggets to drop. How was that session we just did?
No, it was absolutely amazing. That was a 10. That was phenomenal.
10?
Yeah, it really was.
That's the goal, man.
I do so many sessions on my own with your audios, and I've had some pretty good sessions, but yeah, just having this one is completely worth it.
Cool. It's my honor, my pleasure, my privilege. Do you mind maybe starting at the beginning, and then we'll kind of lead up to now, and then talk about what we just did with this session? Is that cool? Maybe talk about why you first got interested in hypnosis, what you were struggling with initially, and what happened after your first session. What did you notice different, etc.?
Yeah. So initially, I joined when I started to hear a bit about hypnosis, and the reason that I even met Ryan in the first place was that I ended up joining a community that he was a part of, and the only reason that Ryan Fowler,
and then Ryan Christensen,
right.
another hypnotherapist.
Oh yeah, I'll specify. Yeah,
Christensen, call me Fowler or whatever.
Yeah, Fowler. The reason I joined I met Fowler was I joined a community that he joined, and the only reason that I joined that community was because I was having so many issues of approach anxiety, and I felt like I wanted to network with people that had this sorted. So that was that was a huge driver, actually. I have to thank it in some ways. It really got me to where I am because it made me join all these things and go on this journey to try to find answers. But before, I was always looking for the answers to my problems with external things, and it would improve me.
What are some external solutions you looked for that didn't quite work for you, or maybe
at first I thought that if I joined John's community, and if I just listened to the webinars and things, that it would sort itself out, and that or if I did jujitsu or something, martial arts, it would make me more masculine, more dominant and confident, and I'd be able to do it. And all those things helped me in different ways, but it still didn't address the main issue that I was having. I even thought that if I joined some pickup boot camp and went on a 2-week boot camp, and I approached many girls there. I probably approached at least 100 girls down there in those 2 weeks, but it was really more of a place of I want them to think that I'm cool. I want them to think highly of me. And it was less of me giving myself permission to do what I wanted to do. Right. Yeah. And so what happened was, I came back and I had the same problem.
Real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So you approached 100 women. How much easier did approaching 100 women at this camp make it to approach women after that?
So yeah, to my surprise at the time, not much easier at all. In fact, I approached 100 women, and immediately after when I got back, I did go out a couple times, and I was able to approach them. So I think I had some momentum, but there was still fundamentally all the issues that I had that gave me the anxiety in the first place was still there. And so when everything shut down, because right after that was when the lockdown stuff happened, and I lost that momentum, and then I went over a year without approaching any women. And it wasn't until and then I had the session and it cleared out a lot of trauma when I first had your session, because I heard about, Fowler through John's community,
Mhm.
and I remember seeing the video, and you were talking in one of the webinars, and I was like, well, I tried a lot of other things, and it does kind of make sense that, because I had already kind of dabbled in this area before with more along the lines of meditation and things like that. And so I definitely believed in the concept of going into your problems rather than running away from your problems.
Mhm.
And so I knew that this was something that I had to go into. And I even had a feeling that it would be something to do with, meditation or something like that. But I didn't really know how. I didn't know how to actually experience the trauma and release the trauma. I knew that I had to let go of it, but I didn't know how to bring it to the surface, release it, and all of that. And so when I did hear about Fowler's what Fowler offers here, his service, it did really catch my eye. Yeah. And so I was like, I need to at least give this a try. What's the worst thing that could happen? And so I had the first session, and after that, it wasn't like
What
it
did we
wasn't like
hear?
I was,
What did we address in the first session that you were? What did we share?
yeah,
Or did it
we,
work? What happened?
it honestly, the first session brought to light so many things that I didn't even know were there. That was the beauty of the first session to me, because I, when we, even before we went into hypnosis, when you were asking me the questions, because my entire life I've only experienced through my own lens. So
Mhm.
when I look back before, I just accepted so many things as like normal. I didn't really think much of them, like my upbringing and things like that. But then when you were asking me the questions, I was like, wait a minute, all this happened, and it was actually, wow, like that probably has had an effect on me. And it really brought a lot of things to the surface. And when I experienced the emotions, when I allowed myself to feel the emotions that we brought to the surface, I knew that there was definitely a lot that I hadn't even considered. And so that first session was really just removing a lot of things were holding me back I didn't even know. And so immediately
What
after the
was removed?
session,
Give me examples of some. So were there actually blocks that were removed from the session, or just more awareness?
yeah, there were definitely blocks that were removed, especially in the way that I carried myself and my energy and my confidence in myself. And
Mm.
I noticed an immediate change after the first session, an immediate change, an improvement in that. And other people even noticed as well.
Was that temporary or permanent? Was it like a
A
1 week?
permanent,
One,
yeah, it was a
one
complete
session.
permanent change. Yeah,
Noticeable.
yeah.
Is that right? It was noticeable and other people noticed it and it was substantial. Is that all right? All true?
Yeah.
Now,
And I even had some other barriers before that.
mhm.
Uh, like for example, with my YouTube channel, I had made some videos, but I wasn't that consistent because I had all this self doubt and all these things that were, holding back my confidence, me from being confident and from being able just to create content. And after that first session, that was like the immediate thing was that I just like kept making videos, and I had the
Right.
confidence in that regard.
Now you
There were so
believe in
many
yourself
layers to
now.
it, though. I didn't completely. I still had things to work on, most certainly, but the amount of change, positive change, even after one session, was incredible.
I want to kind of illustrate some point or kind of expound on some points you brought up so far. So the first thing, um, with your approaching, I want to kind of illustrate this to whoever's watching. With your approach anxiety, there's two things that make us anxious in general, but it's applied here to approaching women. If we're not familiar with doing something, we can have anxiety if we're not used to doing it. But, and I have some, you know, the general, I think wisdom in the manosphere is you just got to approach women until it gets better and then it's fine. Is that right? I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah, I
I,
would say so.
but in
That's
your
what I
situation,
gather.
so there's two things. One is we have anxiety because we're not familiar with something that's out of our comfort zone. But you approached 100 women and you still had approach anxiety after. Is that right?
Yeah, and to be completely fair, I think there is a healthy amount of anxiety, a natural amount of anxiety with something like this,
There's
especially
always
if
going
you're
to be
going out to a
10,
nightclub and
3 out of
there's
10.
like tons of people. But what I've come to realize is there's an anxiety and then there's a disproportionate amount of anxiety.
Boom,
So
nailed it.
if you yeah, if you're going out there and the the mountain to climb just to talk to a girl is so great that you don't that it takes everything in you to possibly even put yourself out there, then you possibly have a disproportionate amount of anxiety, and that could be related to some kind of trauma. And that is where something like hypnosis is extremely powerful. It's not to say that once you clear the trauma that you'll never experience the anxiety, but it'll be manageable anxiety. You'll be like, okay, I have a little
Yeah,
anxiety, but that's not going to stop me from doing what I need to do.
100%. And so I want to illustrate three principles here. So generally in anxiety, it's two things that make us anxious. The first, we're not used to it. It's unfamiliar. The second is anxiety is a tool our brain uses when it perceives the potential for pain, emotional pain, typically in today's world. And so our brain sees there's a hot girl. If she rejects you, you have toxic shame that's going to get triggered, which means she rejected me. That means I'm a failure. I'm a loser. I'm not good enough. That hurts. If your brain perceives that, it's going to give you anxiety because it doesn't want you to approach her and feel pain. So, first program, we're not familiar with it, we'll get anxiety. But the second program, if we have trauma in us, our brain is going to say you're either going to hurt because you don't approach her and now you beat yourself up for being a coward, or you approach her, she rejects you, now you beat up. Our brain sees a hot girl, sees a potential for pain, gives you anxiety. When we clear this underlying trauma of it hurts to be rejected, it means I'm no good, or I'm a coward for not approaching her, that's trauma. When we clear that, that's where the approach anxiety goes, this big disproportionate anxiety goes away. There is another anxiety, which is when we're approaching women, we've evolved from caveman times, and in ancient times, if you approach a wrong woman, it was like one of the girls of some big powerful warrior, he could kill you. So we have a little natural anxiety. Hey, be a little careful, even though it's from caveman times, it doesn't apply now. Usually no one will kill us for approaching a girl we see at a bar. It's extremely rare. But there is a little of that too. And if you're not familiar to approaching, you'll have a little anxiety from that too. And that's just normal. But we're talking about the big trauma, anxiety tied to, oh, if she rejects me, I'm going to feel terrible. The anxiety from that can take your anxiety from like a 3 out of 10 to like a 10 out of 10, 8, 9 out of 10. It can make it really bad. Would you agree? Do you think that's what you saw or no?
The anxiety being a
Anxiety
10.
from potential for pain, meaning if she rejects me.
Oh yeah, before, yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, it was like the rejection would feel painful, and I would rather just not do it. Or if I did do it, I would rather just be as platonic as possible so that I couldn't get rejected.
Yeah.
I would try to play it as safe as possible
Uh,
before.
you had an experience where we did one session, we cleared a lot of trauma out, but we're like layers of the onion, meaning we peel one layer away. It's like, wow, I got this type of trauma away forever, but there's other layers of the onion. Our psyche's vast. There's other stuff to work on, even if we help you quite a bit with one session. Maybe we clear 2 or 3 bad programs out. There's still more to clear. So you were telling me about an experience you had where you were still feeling approach anxiety with women, and then you did some self-hypnosis and you managed to clear that out on your own. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the way that I would describe it, after the first session, I still wasn't able to approach women quite, even though I made all these other huge leaps forward. And when I had 2 more sessions with Christensen, those also resulted in some pretty substantial leaps forward, but I still was not able to conquer this issue.
Mhm.
Now, one thing is that I am a very logical person, and I what I overlooked before was the importance of really looking into your feeling, like what you feel in the moment. So when you're feeling the resistance, yeah, feel it to heal it, exactly. So like when you're in the moment, recognizing where in your body do you feel it, and what does it actually feel like. And so when I was messaging in Fowler's community, in his private community, about the issue that I was having, he actually gave me a lot of good suggestions. And one of them was to really notice the feeling, where in your body you feel it and how it feels, and then bring that into the next session that you do with his recordings. Because I definitely was doing his recordings before, but like I said, I wasn't putting enough emphasis on the feeling.
Yeah,
And so,
explain what the recordings are just real briefly.
oh, right. Yeah. So the recordings are basically a guided walkthrough, a guided hypnosis session done by Fowler. And so it's pretty much pretty similar to what a session would be like with him, except for obviously you
Not
can't
guided.
respond. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, he can ask you questions and you respond and truly tailor it to yourself. But he will ask a lot of, or he will get you to really think and to talk to yourself and work through the issues. But so when I brought that, the feeling, I was able to really bring that into the session and experience it in the session, and I was able to ramp it up, right? Feel it to heal it. So I was able to really go into the emotion and allow myself to feel it fully and release it. That was the key. That was the key difference that led to the results before that I wasn't getting when I wasn't doing that, right?
Yeah.
And
So
so,
I just want to explain for our audience. The subconscious mind is the seat of our emotions. Our subconscious gives us emotions based on the program's inner subconscious, how it interprets events in our outside world. So when you see a hot girl and you're like, I'm terrified to approach her, that's because your subconscious has a program that interprets this could really hurt. This will mean I'm a loser. She's only going to reject me, whatever it may be. It gives you a feeling, or it gives you an anxiety to avoid feeling a bad feeling that's down there if the girl does reject you, or if you beat yourself up for not approaching her. So when you connect to the feeling, you are now connected to the subconscious program from whence that feeling comes. That allows us to clear it. And so you went into hypnosis and you connected to this feeling basically for the first time, this particular feeling. Is that right? And then what happened?
yeah, before you told me to do that, I wouldn't have been able to answer those questions, because I was like, I don't know, where in my body do I feel this, and what does it feel like? And so the next time I went out and I was struggling with it, I made sure to pay attention to that. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be painful. I'm having trouble approaching women, but I'm just gonna go out here just for the data, so that I know like what I'm feeling, because I can really just bring it to the surface. I'm just gonna go out here because it's gonna bring it to the surface, right? And then I can at least be more in tune with it. And yeah, so I brought it to the session, and immediately I noticed a difference in how I felt after the session. Uh, it
Oh,
it definitely felt like there was a change in me. And so I went out that night, and I went from a lot of times going out with my friends, approaching no girls or 3 girls if I was lucky, to I went out by myself and approached 10 girls. And it was a very freeing experience. And
now,
I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that before.
is it easier to approach with friends or by yourself normally before?
Before that, honestly, it was easier when I was with friends, because I would kind of try to show off to them like, oh, they're having trouble with this, but let me show them by
Yeah.
approaching this girl. Same thing when I was in Sydney with the boot camp, right? It was like I want to show them there's other students there that are struggling with approach anxiety, but I want to be the guy that approaches, the cool guy,
Yeah,
right? So it was way easier in that situation. But when I was alone, or when I was with people that, maybe I didn't want to show off to or whatever, it would be harder.
it's harder
But
by
now I
yourself.
don't experience that. Yeah,
But
it's harder by
by
yourself in general.
yourself, and you approach more than 3 times as much as you normally do with friends. Is that right?
Well, like I said, with friends, I was doing it like 0 to 3 times. I did it 10 times on my own. Then and then I went out the next night and I did like another 10. So I did like 20 in a weekend, and it wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
How was it different? What was the feel? How were the feelings different? How was the anxiety different?
So yeah, the anxiety was still there, but very manageable. Very like, okay, I feel this, but I can overcome it. It's not a big deal. It's not going to stop me. It's not going to cause me to just stand around and walk around for hours and go home feeling bad. Nothing like that. And even the couple times I did get rejected, because I got rejected a couple times, but it even wasn't a big deal. I was like, okay, let's do the next one.
Was this a temporary improvement or pretty much permanent?
No, it was a permanent improvement. And then suddenly I had new problems, right? Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But now, because I'm always thinking like that. I'm always thinking like, okay, what can I do to improve next? I think that a lot of people that watch your stuff are probably similar to that. So,
Well,
but
yeah.
I was happy though, because it was a new issue.
Well,
For so long, I had this one issue. For so long, for years, I had one issue, and now I finally moved on to a new issue.
And these aren't new issues that came out of nowhere. These were all issues you've had all along, right?
Yeah.
But what
Right.
happens is the thing that is messing you up the most or hurts the most is what you focus on. So when you go inward and you start connecting to this stuff, 2 things happen. If you understand how to use the self-hypnosis audios, or you come to a good hypnotherapist that knows how to clear this stuff out, you clear stuff away, and when you're going inward, you become more aware of stuff inside of you. All of these, it's not like we created new problems that now you have to clear these new problems. They've all been there. You've just been focusing on the worst stuff. You clear away the bad stuff, and then there's stuff not quite as bad underneath. You're like, oh, I got these other things that have been there. Now I want to clear these. My personal experience is the more you clear, life just gets better, and life gets better, and life gets better. You start making more money, you start doing more stuff, getting hotter women. You start getting what you want. You start believing in yourself, embracing your value, feeling at your core level you have value, like the real you has value. And you just keep clearing more stuff out. So we will notice, as we kind of develop going inward and paying attention to our feelings, we'll notice stuff that maybe we hadn't noticed as much or even at all before, but it's not new stuff. It's always been there. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think for the longest time, this was just such like a big deal, like the approaching.
And how many sessions? Once you got it, how many sessions did you have to do to clear this out that you were struggling with for years?
Oh yeah, that took one.
One self-hypnosis session. That's how it works.
Yeah. It almost sounds too good to be true, like it's magic. But if you really think about it, like I was saying before, this is an internal problem, right? And so this is very much an internal solution. So you're not taking medication and working on something, on a symptom. You're not working on a symptom. You're actually addressing the problem at the source. So yeah, it makes sense when you think about it that way.
And I wanted to interview you, Ryan, because this example of I had massive anxiety, like, I don't know, scale out of 0 to 10, what was your approach anxiety before?
Yeah, it's probably about an 8.
And what is it now, just approaching girls?
Oh yeah, I would say it's like a 3.
Cool. So I wanted to interview you because this is such a great example of I cured my manic depression doing self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis requires a certain amount of education and developing a skill, but it can be just as powerful as someone doing a session for you if you know how to do it. And your example of, man, I had this thing I struggled with for years. I did one self-hypnosis session, boom, from 8 out of 10 down to 3 out of 10 permanently. One session, boom. This is a key to unlocking the human potential, like healing the human soul at the source. Our subconscious programs are static. They're always there. When you clear bad subconscious programs, then they're gone. They're there until you clear them. They can be there for 60, 70 years. You can go to therapy and kind of chip away at it, working on your conscious mind to try and influence your subconscious. But what we're doing here is we're going right to the source. We're working with your subconscious, clearing this stuff out, and then it's gone forever. And how many different things do you think you used to struggle with that are gone now?
Oh, it's honestly, it's hard to say because people are always pointing out something about me like 6 months ago that's different.
How
I
much
feel
better is
like
your life now? Is this a moderate improvement, small, massive, overall?
since the very first
Yeah,
session.
since the beginning.
Oh, it's a pretty substantial improvement, I would say altogether. Yeah, for
Yeah, and
sure.
you've had how many like professional sessions total?
This is the fourth one I just had with you.
Gotcha. Cool. And do you feel each session you had improvement, or was there a session, like I'm talking about the guided ones? Was there any one that didn't work for you, or were you felt like you're making progress each time, or?
Yeah, I think it's been a mixture, but in all the sessions I have improved. There is times where I can immediately notice, okay, I'm way different after the session. Like the first session and this one was like that. But then I've also had some sessions where I felt good, but I wasn't sure. But then I found out later that, from what the things other people notice, and then I started to notice as well that yeah, I actually did improve a lot from that session. So
Right.
I haven't taken any professional sessions that didn't benefit me in some way.
Cool.
Most of them benefit me a lot, pretty noticeably though.
Yeah, so this session we just had, do you think you need some time to figure out if it was helpful, or in what ways it was helpful, or do you already feel it was helpful? Tell us about it.
So this is one of the ones where it's like immediately after you take it, you just feel an insane, like a substantial improvement, which is always really nice. So yeah, this is definitely one that I know for sure without a doubt that it's changed me.
Awesome, man. What was the improvement, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So before, the thing was I was able to approach women, but I would still be very I would put on a facade. I wouldn't be able to express myself authentically. And even to the point that when I was in Sydney and I happened to I had the privilege of watching video recordings of me talking to women, I couldn't believe the person that I was seeing on screen. It did not seem like me. I did not recognize myself at all because I had such a facade on. So even when I initially cleared the trauma and was able to approach women, I still had this issue. So, like Ryan was saying, not technically not a new issue. I've had that even before, right? But now noticing that this was the next hurdle to overcome, uh, I noticed that every time tried to, I was like, okay, I can approach women, but the second that I approach a woman with the intent of, showing my intentions, being authentic, the approach anxiety came back, right?
Yeah.
Or if I did, I was in the moment, I would I would feel a lot of anxiety in that moment and just not do it, decide not to do it. So I knew that there was some kind of trauma behind this. I tried to use the audios and recordings like before and work through it on my own, but I was having trouble doing that. So I got professional help. So I booked another session with Ryan, and that's why I booked this one.
Yeah, and sometimes you need guidance because you're just like, man, I'm not sure what's really going on here, you know. So that's why I helped you out on this session. I am building an educational program to train people to use the self-hypnosis audios better, and I'm just going to do a lot more audio. So that's coming. Um, but is there anything you would say to anyone considering doing this, or who wants to learn more, or who is maybe suffering, who is struggling? has stuff that has been holding them back for years. Maybe they don't feel good about themselves, they don't believe in themselves, or they have anxiety or some other stuff. Anything you want to tell any of them?
Yeah, honestly, I feel very fortunate that I found this as soon as I did. But even with that being said, I definitely faced it.
Oh, you're cutting out.
I'd say wasted, but a good 2 or 3 years of wandering around blindly looking for external solutions to an internal problem. And even if you're skeptical about this stuff, because I think it's, especially if you're very logical, it's natural that something like this would sound like it could be too good to be true or anything like that. But just give it a try. I mean,
Yeah.
the just like, like the best investors, they say they look for the stuff with the highest upside versus the downside. If you really weigh it out, right, it's like the upside is you clear it forever. A single session clears your problem forever. And even
That
on a
mind blowing.
slightly, yeah, it's
Like one
crazy to
session,
even
what? I
vocalize
don't
that.
struggle with this anymore. Isn't that crazy?
And even at a pretty good but slightly not as good case, maybe it takes you multiple sessions, but you clear it out forever and you don't have to worry about it. Just imagine whatever you're struggling with right now. Imagine what it would feel like if that was no longer a concern in your life, right? And so that's the kind of upside that you're looking at with hypnosis. And the downside is like, okay, maybe you're short a few $100 or whatever, and maybe you try something else, right? Because if you
Try,
don't,
try
if
different
you
stuff.
if
What do you got
yeah,
to lose?
if you don't try the hypnosis route, then you're gonna try other routes anyways. So I can only speak from my experience, but this has helped me immensely, and I know a lot of people as well that it's helped. So I think it's definitely worth the shot for sure.
Yeah. Well, I am, I have a very high earning job that I'm going to scale down greatly, 6, 7 months. Even I might even stop it altogether because I've been doing this for a few years now. I've been doing it for 8 years on myself, and I'm absolutely convinced this is the real deal. I had 100 normal therapy sessions, and this is like 40, 50 times more powerful in my opinion. Um, so I'm committed to it. Thanks for sharing your story, because this is going to help dudes, and that's what this is all about. I want to go to this full time. I am going to this full time instead of my day job, which pays a lot. Work out of my home. I'm my own boss. It's great, but I'm doing this because it's like this is that good. It really is the real deal. Um, Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks for being willing to share your message with others. And you know what? Congratulate yourself for being willing to try this, and then having the courage and going out and being like, "Hey, it's scary to approach women. I'm still gonna do it." You know, and then just searching for a solution, and then you find one. That's how it's done, man. So kudos to you. You're a badass. Thank you, sir. Any final thoughts?
Uh, no, that's pretty much it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Honored to be on.
It's an honor, man. Keep doing the work, bro.